this is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Oh, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and the plot is thickening with the cocaine situation in the White House. And it turns out where they claimed the cocaine was found, it was found in a different place that still has foot traffic, but is harder to get to. So the idea that people kind of had in their head that maybe someone dropped off on a White House tour isn't really making a lot of sense. Maybe someone could have, dropped it off in a little cubby on their way to the situation room. um I don't know about that. I think there's more plausible explanations that we'll get to. But the reaction from the White House is really funny. So if you're wondering why, if you've been on Twitter, why the hatch is trending, we will tell you. I will tell you why that is trending. And it definitely has to do with the White House and their reaction to Hunter Biden's story. I'm sorry, we don't know that it's Hunter Biden. I shouldn't jump ahead of myself. Of the cocaine story in the White House. So we'll be talking about that. Also, Sound of Freedom. There's really some. We talked about it yesterday, and there's really some interesting reactions that I'm seeing from people pushing back into film. People all over, like, saying that it's great. People are watching it. People going and crying. There's been some, a lot of positive reviews, but there's people who definitely want to trash it. I think it was maybe Jezebel and stuff. Folks who are just kind of relating it to like a QAnon conspiracy film, and people are like, oh, why are so many MAGA people watching it? And it's really not a political film. And so we'll get to that. Also, my sister sent me this article a couple days ago that Not the Bee did about the person who they want writing and directing Little Woman. Doesn't really seem, I mean, I'm sorry, Narnia on Netflix has people concerned with how it might be made. Now, Narnia wasn't like my huge cup of tea. I know there's people who love Narnia, but I do really like C.S. Lewis and his work. He's a really brilliant apologist. So I would hate to kind of see them suck the religion from it, I guess. But we'll get to that. That'll be at the tail end of the show. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on the website, different articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It costs to stream and run my website. So if you can support, God bless you. Very much appreciate it. If you can, whether it's a gift of $10 or $20 or $50 or more, again, appreciate it. It helps with my overhead. And also there's some things that I'd like to get. I'm very, happy about my new mic and stuff, but there's other things that I would like to get and need and stuff. So if you can, thank you very much. Also check out different merch that we have at the store, like, Black Tea mug, and we got other mugs as well. I guess I will show the crack shirt again, the Make Crack Whack again. I made this for a totally different reason, and it's still, it was unrelated to Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, but man, it's a good shirt right now. So you guys can get different things over at blacktnews.com. Also check out different books that I've written. I have over 30 books that I've written. 15 are fiction, ranges from mermaids and vampires, and I have a vast imagination. I have middle grade chapter books like Super Kid. I have historical fiction fantasy books as well. But my nonfiction books, one is a faith book called Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome Spirit of Fear. And the other one is, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion, which I encourage you guys to read. It has a lot of philosophy, and it talks about rights, and it talks about science, but and it also, of course, talks about the theology. But the philosophies in it is really good. So I encourage you guys to check it out. I want to thank everybody in the chat watching and commenting. I see you guys in here. Thank you guys for commenting. That helps people, discover. So thank you guys for the conversations you have with me and you guys have with each other. Thank you to everyone who watches it back later. I know not everyone can watch it live. All that does really help. If you're watching on Facebook, you can send stars. If you're watching on YouTube, you can send super chats. So another thing I want to jump into before we get started, I did post about this. For those of you who don't know, I work with the Brighter Michigan Pack. I'm on their board. And so one thing that we do is that we have we host a fundraiser for the Fallen and Wounded Soldiers Fund. And so we have it in Oakland County. So if you're in Michigan, in the Michigan area, or you like to drive, there's an event that we're having next week, actually. And it's a really amazing event. It's at the Kasab Estate, and it's a really nice house, kind of like walking into a movie. And your ticket will cover food, it will cover drinks, there's entertainment and singing. I will be opening up the program with a national anthem, so you get to hear me sing. But there's celebrities that come out to it, and there's helicopter landings like on the lawn. And they honor particular veterans, and their accomplishments, people who saved a lot of lives. So, and also they honor like other folks as well. So if you can come out, I very much appreciate it. I'm about to share my screen so you guys can see this flyer. But it's July 13th. It's from 6 to 10. So the 6th is when the I think it's when the VIP hour starts. And then later on, the actual program will begin. So 97% of what is raised goes to the veterans. So that's really good for a charity. A lot of charities take a lot, off the top, or depending. They have a really high rating as far as charities go, but they invest it back into the lives of different soldiers and their families. So it's a really great organization. If you would like to support, if you can't be there, you can. This is the last post that I've made, so if you want to check it out on my YouTube, you can. I did I shared it on Instagram. I don't think I just shared it on Facebook. So maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but I will be there in a second. But you guys can go to that Cheddar Up link to purchase a ticket. Maybe you can, if you can't go, you can purchase a ticket for somebody else. Just let them know, like, hey, you go ahead and share this ticket with somebody, or you can send somebody to go, or you can still sponsor even though you can't show up, though the sponsorship does come with tickets, or you can just give a donation. Again, 97% of what is raised will go directly to different veterans. So if you can go, it'll be a really fun event. It's a really awesome time. So if you can, go ahead and join me, join everybody else. And it is not a Republican event. It is a nonpartisan event. So you can be across the aisle and come over and just honor and sow into the lives of these soldiers. So if you can, it'll be a great event. And if you can't go, I ask that you consider helping us raise funds, because they do really, really amazing work. These people give their lives, or they risk their lives and give so much of themselves in service for this country, for liberty, for freedom. So if we can sow back into them, if they're in need, if their families are in need, we should do that and honor them as well. So just wanted to talk about that, and I will, I guess, continue talking about that until the day of. But very proud of the work that they do, and I've met some really, really inspiring people while being associated with the group. So just wanted to share. So before I jump into the cocaine story, there's something else that you guys know I like to start with something humorous if I can. Everyone's pretty much laughing at former Senator Al Franken, who got ousted because well, for he got me too'd, um, basically. So he was talking about the 303 creative case, and he decided to tweet, Colorado woman asked me to write homophobic and anti-Semitic jokes to express her hostility to gay marriage and Jews in general to promote her non-existent web design business. Do I have to? And people are dunking on him because it's like he doesn't realize that he actually approves of the ruling. And the answer is no, because the Supreme Court affirmed that your speech can't be compelled. So again, and I'll keep saying this, and I'm so glad people are dunking on him. Well, I don't know if enough people are dunking on him, but I'm glad that people are dunking on him. I'm certainly dunking on him. People don't disagree with this ruling. If they do disagree with the ruling, it's not out of a matter of principle. They're upset because they want the government to protect them as a particular class, but they don't want other people to have the same kind of equality as them. And we see a repeated theme on the left, and not just fringe people, people who are in power, like Dana Nessel, like the Attorney General of Michigan, who's upset at a neutral flag policy because she says neutrality, um, you know, oppresses or doesn't help the people who are oppressed and keeps them oppressed and at a disadvantage when everything is neutral. So the fact that an all Muslim city council ruled that you can't fly pride flags, just like you can't fly Christian flags or Muslim flags or whatever, only government flags, the American flag, which should be covered for everyone. Um, she says that's evil. That it's literally evil, that neutrality, not doing anything and not taking a stand, I guess, particularly for LGBT, it is evil and just as bad as Islamophobia, according to her. So if you are upset about the 303 creative case, it's because you're mad that the government won't compel Christians or just people you don't like to do what you want. And that's not what the government's supposed to do. They're supposed to ensure our liberties, not oppress us, and be a club for your sick pleasure. That's not what they're supposed to do. That's not supposed to be their function. That's not why we came together and formed our government, you know, which we just celebrated. We just celebrated 4th of July, Independence Day, which it burns my biscuits when people, by the way, just dunk on the country. I have a rant, but maybe I don't know if I'll rant about it today about people who say gross things on 4th of July, because there's examples I have. There's examples, certainly, different videos and different tweets and things from elected officials. But the freedom is supposed to be for all. It wasn't, not everyone always had access to it applied equally. But what people are fighting for or upset about, they're upset because they still want it to be applied unequally. And when it's not applied equally, they think that it's unequal. But when you're so used to privilege, I think Thomas Sowell said something like, when you're used to privilege, equality seems, like oppression. So Al Franken is, I'm glad he's not in the Senate anymore. Yeah, he exactly agrees with it. He just doesn't get it because he wouldn't want the government to enforce this particular scenario that he's trying to make fun of the situation about. But the answer is no, because the Supreme Court affirmed that the government cannot compel your speech. Speaking of funny, this is from Political. White House cocaine culprit unlikely to be found. Someone made a TikTok that was so funny. There's a guy, I don't know what it's from, but everyone is using this template of this guy going, you're sure about that? You're sure about that? You sure about that? And it was so short. I didn't think it was worth kind of showing you guys because it was just a few seconds. And the funny thing is, things just kind of keep replaying online, so it wouldn't have really had the same effect. But again, we don't know whose it is, but we have suspicions. We have reasonable suspicions. You have people upset um because people are making reasonable suspicions, saying that Hunter should sue for people making reasonable suspicions. And again, we don't know if it's his. But it's kind of funny that people are trying to just dodge, the media's just trying to dodge the very obvious fact that a cokehead lives in the White House. I told my mom, I think it was on the 4th when we came over her house. And she's like, "You hear they found coke in the White House?" I said, "Yeah, and she said, "Hunter Biden's coke." I'm like, "Mom, we don't know if it's his." And in her face, you know, I wish I had recorded it, because she just was not having it. So where they said it was originally, they said it was like in a library or something. It wasn't the case. And people were saying, well, originally they were saying this is somewhere where there's access to because this is what's on the tour and etc. I still thought it was likely that it was a particular person's stash, but I'm like, it's possible that someone could have brought it in. But I did mention that, they do check you quite a bit when you go into the White House. It's not unreasonable that someone could. They do have dogs and stuff, though. I don't know, but someone could, I don't know, have it between their butt cheeks or in their thing for someone to do on a White House tour. And they do, before you go into the White House. I've never been on the tour, but I've been in the White House in the Secret Service and stuff. They do look you up, they do dig into you a bit. When one time when we went to the White House, my sister, the one I see Katrina in the chat, believe it was her. We had to confirm that we were going, and so Google auto filled in her name and stuff. So she had the wrong maybe last name, maybe said Katrina Gina or something like that. Um, Obvious when you looked at it, when you look at the confirmation, it would be like an obvious mistake. But they still held her up, which I don't think she minded all too much because I don't know what it was about the Trump administration, but some of the people they had working for Secret Service was looking kind of cute. So I don't think she minded all too much being held up for a minute, but because she said the dude who held her up looked like he should have been on a CW show. Um, but it's not. I just don't think it would be terribly easy for someone to get coke in the White House on a tour. So the story has evolved. It's shifted. So there's reports that it's not what originally was.
Yeah, Rowan Kelly O'Donnell reports that it's possible that we might not even get to learn who actually brought this small baggie is. So I'm sure that's a sigh of relief to whoever sort of made the boneheaded move of bringing a bag of cocaine to the White House. But because this was in a, not an area that, is highly trafficked, but wasn't necessarily covered by cameras all that well, it's an area that a decent amount of people had access to. It just makes that investigation a little bit difficult. So, this could all end without, necessarily anyone being named as the person who was responsible for bringing that bag of cocaine to the White House.
Oh, we'll just never know. We'll just never know.
Kelly, the big change is where this was found. And it was found, by my observation, in a much more secure place, limited access place than that West Wing reception area. It's still a frequently trafficked place, but it's down near the Situation Room, right off West Executive, down below. And normal people, average people, just can't get in there, even with the entry from the Northwest Gate.
Well, let me bring you up to date with the reporting that I have. What we have learned is that there are, in fact, 2 West Wing entrances. You know that, I know that, but for the benefit of our audience. And now the investigation has progressed, and so they're saying the West Executive entrance, which, as you noted, is closer to the Situation Room and closer to the Navy mess, where there's the facilities for food and so forth. It is also next to West Executive Drive. That's where, for example, the vice president's vehicle is parked.
So the story again is evolving. So they asked, White House press people about information, saying, well, what will happen if we find out, who it is, will they be transparent about it? And they're not so much.
Yeah, our own Kelly O'Donnell reports that it's possible that we might not even get.
It's the wrong one.
One more on the cocaine. I understand the Secret Service is conducting an investigation. If the Secret Service is able to determine the individual responsible, will the Secret Service and will the White House commit to transparency in this and making that information public?
I'm going to defer to the Secret Service professionals who are carrying this out. I'm just not going to engage on hypotheticals about it. I would suggest you contact them for anything more.
So, I would assume that's a no. We're not going to learn who had the cocaine. But this is the one that's blowing everybody's mind.
One more on the cocaine.
One more. Former President Trump has made some pretty wild posts recently on social media. One of them was that the cocaine found in the White House had belonged to either the president or his son. Are you willing to say that that's not the case, that they don't belong to them?
I don't have a response to that because we have to be careful about the Hatch Act. What I will say is that I have noticed there does seem to be some increasing frustration coming from that corner in general. And I think it is probably rooted in the contrast between their substantive policy records.
How is it against the Hatch Act to tell the people the truth about this cocaine? How is that against the Hatch Act? The Hatch Act is to make sure that like elected officials and stuff don't really breach beyond them doing their job and doing political things. So what does that mean? That if you're honest about the cocaine, that would impact the election? Is that what you're saying? That what does that mean? Why can't you just report honest thing that's happening? Don't the American people have a right to know? The people are saying it would have been better if he just threw his hands up screaming and ran away rather than pinning it on the Hatch Act. That is some weak tea. That is such weak tea. So if you were wondering why the Hatch Act is trending, why people are talking about it, that's why. That's why. So I'm sure someone must have gone to Hunter and say, I'm assuming his father said, was that yours? I'm sure someone knows the truth. Someone posed the question, unless it's just understood that it kind of is, probably is, and it's best, not only best not to ask, that you better not ask, because that's also a possibility. That Joe just doesn't want anyone to go that route, to say that thing, and heads will roll if they do. He could be super, some people are so super sensitive about their kids, and if you say anything, and they can know that they're in the wrong. Like if it was any other person in any other situation, they'd be like, oh, that kid is awful or terrible, they're doing this or whatever, they're out of control. But if it was their kid, they're just, what are you talking about? Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Just totally blind to it. When you press them, they're defensive. So it could be a situation like that where people know that Hunter is a really big liability, and not just the cocaine. The cocaine thing is interesting. Certainly. I don't think it could always not be his. It could always be someone else's. It doesn't have to be his. But he definitely looks like a likely candidate, and people kind of pretending like he's not is what makes it so interesting. And them throwing out the Hatch Act and basically not promising to have transparency. That's what makes these stories bigger than they are. I probably wouldn't have mentioned it today if not for the reaction from the White House. But we know there's other ways that Hunter has obviously made himself a liability to his dad. One of those text messages that we talked about, that were that were revealed, by the IRS whistleblowers, with Hunter Biden saying that his dad was right next to him as he was threatening a Chinese businessman. After Joe Biden said that they had no business, he knew nothing of his son's business dealings, which didn't make any sense. Oh, they're riding in the same plane to China together, and Hunter's just going to make a deal, and no one's gonna. What are they doing on the airplane? They're just watching Frozen again. That was, I assume the first one is out of the time. You know, what were they supposed to do the whole time? They're not talking about business. Of course, that was always a dumb thing to say, but nevertheless is what Biden said. So now they have to change their story to I've always maintained that I've never been in business with my son. Well, we assume that's really not true because the 10% goes to the big guy. Is their name going to be on some kind of document or something? I know, no, I don't think anyone expects to find that. But yeah, they definitely have arrangements, but there's definitely huge liability, and there's, if you didn't check out the article, there's a lot of articles and stuff about it, but I did write an article about the Hunter Biden text message thing, and there are pictures that pin them that pins him in Delaware at that time near the house of Biden's residence, so that all makes sense. And then Hunter Biden's lawyers at first came out and was basically like, you can't trust a crackhead. What he says about his family, that's just what Hunter's saying. So he's a big liability. Leaving that laptop behind was crazy. And it had so much information, evidence, things that look bad, so much so that our government had to pretend like it was misinformation, had to suppress it, that social media companies suppressed it. And I don't know what all they'll do since Biden is actually the president now at this time, to try to absolve himself. But who knows if he will actually be the nominee when all this is said and done. I really feel like there's other people chomping at the bit waiting to get in. But his son is definitely a huge liability, and I don't think we're the only ones talking about it. I don't think we're the only ones who recognize it and know it, and maybe the media won't talk too much about it, but I bet other Democrats are painfully aware that Hunter is a liability for his dad. And people try to brush it off and say, well, he's not the president, Hunter's not the president. Well, he's not the president, but he's he's allegedly most likely leaving cocaine in the White House. We don't know that for sure. Allegedly, we don't know. It's speculation. Total speculation. Reasonable speculation. But who knows? But there is a lot of shady deals and stuff attached to it. So Biden doesn't have his hands clean. So people trying to say that Hunter Biden isn't a big deal. If it wasn't a big deal, then they wouldn't have needed to suppress the laptop in 2020. So don't let people lie to you and pretend like it's not a big deal, because everybody obviously thought it was a big deal. And for people who say that all these folks are off limits and that's not fair or whatever, I don't know how old you guys are all in my chat. I'm 34. I know some people think I'm younger. I'm 34 years old. I remember when Bush was in office, and I remember how the media and people treated his kids. And I remember how they treated Bush, and you may not like Bush at all. However, there was an incident where he, choked on a peanut or something, and people were like, did he really? Or was he an alcoholic again? Oh God, man, him being them using that he used to really drink and stuff really almost put a damper in his being elected at all. And that's pretty crazy to me, considering all the garbage about candidates nowadays, whether it was Trump or Biden, there's so many spicy things to use, unsavory things. And Bush was, oh my gosh, back in the day, he was an alcoholic. And I remember when, because I wasn't old enough to vote at the time. I asked my parents, I'm like, well, who did you vote for? My mom just threw her head back and she's like, the drunk. And I was like, the drunk? And she's like, the drunk. I mean, so I guess she wasn't thrilled to do it at the time, but they weren't voting Democrat. So that really hung, on him for like a last minute campaign thing. But that is so far, that is so passive and nothing burger compared to some of the things that we talk about now for our candidates and stuff. Um including like when Hillary's stuff was wild as well. Anyway, moving on. Sound of Freedom, we talked about yesterday. I saw it on the 4th with my family. It was a really good movie. I do encourage other people to see it. And a lot of people are seeing it. I'm seeing people talk about how the theaters were packed. But something I find it so disturbing, how people are pushing back and trying to dismiss it as just like a QAnon conspiracy film, and people are saying are like, oh, this is a religious right-wing QAnon movie. It's not like that at all. It's not like that at all. Even as a religious film, I wouldn't even it doesn't have faith is driving. You feel it within the characters, but it's Tim Pool made this comment that even people who aren't religious can understand like fate working in a script, in a movie. So whether something is like it's not preachy. It's just kind of like fate is driving this to happen. You're being called to do this. Tim Ballard felt called to go there. The people he hooked up with was called to help him. It all kind of came together in a kind of divine, or when you say the universe all brought it together to be able to rescue these kids in the film. So and you sometimes you have to forsake what makes sense, in the natural to follow your calling. So people who are religious obviously relate to that or can relate to that, but I think that people outside that can relate to that in the real world, or at least understand that in some kind of thematic sense as well, just watching a film and enjoying kind of this larger destiny sort of driven story. So it's not like going to the theaters and watching like God's Not Dead 2 or something like that. It's not like that at all. It's not breaking into like a pizza shop parlor or something. It's not like that. So it's weirding me out, the amount of pushback that people are giving it, because if you actually just went to go see the film, you wouldn't belittle it into just like a weird kind of conspiracy thing. Again, this stuff happens. It's unfortunate that it's disgusting that it happens, that people do this to kids and young women, and that people are sex trafficked. But if you don't believe it's happening, this is why we need this film. I heard that they're going to do a second one. I'm not sure if they are, they're not, but people were talking about how Disney passed up on distributing it. So originally Fox was supposed to distribute it and stuff, but Fox was bought out by Disney. Now they don't own everything that Fox had, like Fox News and I think some of Fox Sports, and some of their projects or what their TV shows, like I don't know which ones, but are part of like a new Fox thing. But they got a huge like kind of chunk of their 20th century catalog and stuff. So Disney shelved it for reasons we don't know. For reasons we don't have to allege, they just shelved it for whatever reason. Now, we do know that sometimes movies get shelved, like the or destroyed or on ice forever, like the Batgirl film with Warner Brothers. They decided to was it Discovery who came in or whatever. They decided to just like shelve that thing. They said it was awful, it was terrible, and nobody should see it. So every people who worked on it, who will never get to see people how they react to it. Brendan Fraser talked about, he played Firefly in the film, so he was like the bad guy. I don't think he saw a finished product, but he thought it was a pretty neat film. He liked his role, or whatever. And people were begging on Twitter to release it and stuff. And Warner Brothers is like, no. and it was already like done. They spent the money to make it and stuff, but it's pretty I mean, shelving things isn't unheard of. Something with that big of a budget is pretty amazing. Um so shelving things isn't so crazy. Adventure Time, huge TV show, was on Cartoon Network for quite a few years. But the original short for it wasn't done by Cartoon Network. It was done by Nickelodeon. And Penn Ward, who made the show, he talked about it when I was in college. And he at this time, Cartoon Network didn't have it. It was still kind of like in a limbo. They just thought it was too weird to make into an entire series, so they greenlit a short of his, like, what he made up and stuff with the storyboard and whatnot. But they just didn't want to make it to a full cartoon. Now they got a lot of buzz online and people were talking about it and whatever. I don't know what they eventually had to do to release it. Because I met him before Cartoon Network took it up and bought it and made a lot of money. Again, it was a really popular cartoon. They might have like a spinoff still on HBO. I don't know. Following like Princess Bubblegum and Marceline, they made them gay and they having adventures together or something. But so that might still be going on HBO. I don't know. But companies do shelve things. So there could have been all kinds of reasons why Disney shelved it, but quality wasn't it. Acting wasn't it. It had a good score, good acting, not just from Jim Caviezel, who was great, who delivered a very passionate, emotional performance. Even without having to say a lot, people were talking about like the quiet emotional moments when he would just kind of look and get emotional and cry and stuff. Just imagining and seeing this situation all play out as a father. People just said he was phenomenal, did a great job. So it's not a quality issue, and it was a great movie. It was very entertaining on top of a very serious, important movie. So I don't know why they shelved it for so long. And I'm glad, Angel Studios was able to get it and put it out. And timing's everything, as I talked about, like, fate and everything. It seems like it's was called for a time such as this. So it is what it is. But it is interesting. But I when people were talking about doing a sequel, I did think, I'm like, well, maybe maybe I'll go to the Disney theme parks and catch the people in there. But there has been busts of people in Disney parks. That's sadly true. But if people don't think this happens, it definitely happens. Not just in other parts of the world, but definitely here in the United States. So all these people with these like anti-Q MAGA, people pushing back against it. It's so bizarre. If you're on the fence, just go see it. And I know not everybody watching can go see it. Like, people watch me, around the world, and it's not in the. I haven't seen any release dates like for UK and other places. So maybe if it does really well here, that they'll release it in other spots. I don't know. I don't know what all they had to go through to get this movie greenlit, but and shown in places. But they've been trying to actually get it shown for like 5 years. That's pretty wild to me. But I do question the pushback from so many folks. And if you don't like Jim Caviezel and you don't like Tim Ballard and you don't like their political stances or, some of their interviews and some of the things that they've said, I can understand that. That the movie is still not that though. The movie, I think, should stand on its own, can stand on its own, and I do think that it's an important film. I'm glad that it's having a really good reaction from people, and I'm glad that I think it's funny that Disney shelved it and wouldn't end up distributing it. Um, and it beat Indiana Jones. It beat Indiana Jones, which made like 11 something million, and Sound of Freedom made like 14 million. So hopefully we'll continue to build and people will keep watching it. The idea of the paying it forward, paying for people's movie tickets, it was very smart on Angel Studios to have that mechanism built in, and it's helped with people going to see the film, and that's their main priority, people seeing it, being inspired, being aware of what's happening, and a call to action. So I'm very glad that it's doing well. Last thing I want to talk about is my sister sent me this article about Narnia, which is being done on Netflix. Now Netflix, they can do some okay series, and other times they don't, and they want to they've changed a lot of things, like on The Witcher, for example. Henry Cavill, was into the games, into the books, was like, I will play this character for 7, 9 years, whatever he said, a long time, as long as you're faithful to the story and the characters. And there were times when, he'd push back against the staff and folks working, the writers and stuff, because they wanted to go in weird routes, or they had humor that didn't quite work. Like there was a scene last season when his horse died, and the writers wanted to like have a joke. And this is his horse that's been around with him. He has, a bond with it. And so Henry Cavill's like, that doesn't seem appropriate. And so they're like, okay, well, you can write something or say something. And so he came up with a line, and that's what they have in there, and not a joke like it's a Marvel movie. um but this season, I don't know what all reasons why he decided to leave from and how far they're um running away from the source material. But the Bard, they did decide to make the guy who's singing "Toss a coin to your witcher." Um, they decided to make him bisexual in this season, and someone who's a bit of a womanizer, and his lover is someone they aged up and was supposed to be engaged to Siri. So that's weird. But anything for the LGBT representation, I guess. So Netflix likes to cross some boundaries for some ideology and stuff sometimes. So I don't know how things will or won't be with the adaptation of Chronicles of Narnia. But I wouldn't want them to do it. I wouldn't want them to do it. So this is not the B article. Netflix gives Narnia to Barbie, Little Woman director who sees her work as the opposite of the creation myth and Genesis and strips away the pre-Victorian morality of characters. It seems the postmodernists that C.S. Lewis spent so much time skewering have finally decided it's time for endless winter in Narnia. Netflix has the rights to make Chronicles of Narnia movies now, and it has chosen actor and director Greta Gerwig to make said movies. The ladies responsible for this, and then they showed a picture of the Barbie film. I'm not joking. Netflix wants her to write and direct Narnia films, which there is, if you don't know, there's like a trans actor and stuff in the Barbie movie. So one of the Barbies is actually a Ken, but Uh, Gerwig is an interesting choice given during the press tour for the Barbie film. She's made numerous comparisons between the film and Christianity. Most recently, it was revealed in the New Yorker that when Gerwig originally pitched the film, she did it with a poem in the style of Apostles' Creed. Back in May, while discussing the relationship between Barbie and Ken with Vogue, Gerwig said, Barbie was invented first. Ken was invented after Barbie to burnish Barbie's position in our eyes and in the world. That kind of creation myth is the opposite of the creation myth in Genesis. The Barbie movie isn't out yet, but a woman who sees a movie about dolls for little girls as the opposite of the creation myth in Genesis might be the last person that C.S. Lewis would have picked to adapt his books. In fact, she might be the exact type of person his books warn about. Gerwig, who was raised as a Unitarian Universalist, was also the director of the 2019 Little Woman movie, which some regarded as woke and feminist. In the film, she took out the faith in God that was so crucial in the characters, the thing that all else revolved around, and replaced it with tones of feminist empowerment through the deconstruction of the Christian worldview. When asked by Time magazine if the line was meant to be emblematic of feminist rage, Gerwig commented, if you strip away this pre Victorian morality, what you have is ambitious, passionate, angry, sexual, interesting women who don't fit into the boxes of the world has given them. But I'm sure she'll have great respect for the cherished story written as a gospel allegory by the 20th century's most famed Christian apologist. Everything C.S. Lewis wrote exudes the love and lordship of Christ, the King of Kings who made the universe and yet died a humble death in our place so we can have eternal life if only we believe in him. It is impossible to portray Narnia without that as the crux and the focus of the story. Narnia is not just a magical place, it is a magical place where every rock, fawn, and water sprite points to Christ. As a professor of mythology, Lewis desired to use fiction to share the gospel in a way that got past people's preconceptions and ego and cut to the heart. Supposing that by casting all these things into an imaginary world, stripping them of their stained glass and Sunday school associations, one could make them for the first time appear in their real potency. Could one not thus steal past those watchful dragons? I thought one could. To portray Narnia is to destroy the secular worldview of self-empowerment and self-discovery because all of Lewis's writings took aim at the head of the serpent. His Copodium is a direct rebuttal to the dissection of the Christian worldview that has left us with a cold, sterile, woke world. In the 21st century, the scientist of the NICE would be proud. To undertake a film adaptation of his work is to devote oneself entirely to Aslan's rule, as it were. Anything less. Sorry, I clicked on an ad, I think. Okay, anything a film adaptation of his work is to devote oneself entirely to Aslan's rule, as it were. Anything less is the work of the white witch who seeks only to hijack Aslan's creation for her own purposes. But perhaps that's the point. Yeah, I'd be concerned. I'd be concerned. Again, I liked the film fine enough when it came out. I'm not a big fantasy person. Like I'll watch a fantasy film. I'm not like, steeped into the genre. Some writers are, I mean, that's what they write. They love that and they love to read it and stuff. It's okay. um, you know, um, I guess I prefer more like contemporary kind of stuff, but um Narnia, I like C.S. Lewis though. He's a very profound writer, and his words still strike such a chord um today with anyone who reads their work. I have friends who are deep into apologetics who quote him all the time. I love a good C.S. Lewis quote. Um so this makes me so concerned about just stuff, because you guys know that I write, and I'm just like, how would someone else try to just ruin my things? um but I don't know, it could be grand, it could be great, or maybe it's dead on arrival. I wouldn't get too excited, but things can pleasantly surprise you. But unfortunately, there's been a lot of things that we've all very much loved that people have disrespected and kind of ruined. And other people watch it and they're like, "Oh, that was pretty good," but they suck the heart out of it. And maybe other people will watch it a little bit, but the fans are livid and they don't want to support it. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, thank you guys very much for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. Please check out my different merch that I have at blacktnews.com. Like make crack whack again. You guys can go ahead and get that one. We got different other stuff that you guys can get at the website as well. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation at the website. Every little bit helps. It costs a stream and run my website, so if you can help, I very much appreciate it. Also check out my book, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. It's available on Amazon, and it's also available on Barnes and Noble as well. So I guess I got a little. I'll save it for tomorrow. I told you guys I had a rant, but I'll table it for now. But I do also want to encourage you guys once again to if you're in the Michigan area, you don't like, or you want to drive. Some people, you might be on the border or something of another state, and maybe it's not too long a drive or something. But in Oakland County area, we're having our a fundraiser for the Fallen and Wounded Soldiers Fund, and 97% of the money that is raised goes to veterans. So it is a very good organization. A lot of charities skim a lot from the top, or they pay the folks a lot and stuff to, or the people at the top to taking a lot of money. They invest their money back into the people who have served in their families and the people who really need it. So next Thursday, July 16th, there's going to be an event at this big estate. Like I said, it's kind of like walking into a movie. There'll be music, there'll be food. The food's covered, so you don't have to bring extra money for food and stuff. Drinks, you can have drinks, and there should be a cigar lounge. They usually do like a cigar bar as well. And celebrities will show up, elected officials will show up as well. And they'll be honoring different heroes that have served and saved lives. So if you can come, that would be great. I will be there. I will actually be headlining with the national anthem, singing that when the program and stuff starts. So you'll see me. I will be there. But if you can't come, maybe it's too far, or maybe it's more than you can pay or afford, but you'd like to help in some kind of way, you can go ahead and support. So this is a post that I made on YouTube. So the link is in the post. So if you hit that read more, it's right there. It's a Salute Our Warriors. The Cheddar Up site is where they're taking in the money and stuff. So there should still be time to sponsor and stuff if you're interested in doing that, or if you're interested in paying for someone else's ticket. But if you want to just donate, that's fine, and it's much appreciated. So if you can support, God bless you. Or if maybe someone who might be interested in supporting, maybe they don't share quite your politics, but they do want to help veterans in need, you can go ahead and spread this around. And if people are looking at the flyer that I have shared, they can scan that QR code and it'll take them to that site where they can go ahead and buy a ticket or donate or sponsor, whatever you want to do. So thank you guys for listening, and I will see you all. Someone said they're not going to Michigan anytime soon because they don't want a $10,000 fine for misgendering, I guess. I they're talking about the pronoun thing. People have questioned elected officials about it. There's Democrats saying that it's false. I keep asking them, I'm like, so does that mean we can, call Ellen Page Ellen and not, use the pronouns and stuff and nothing will happen? They're not responding to that. But I think, was it the AP? There was a newspaper that wrote a story about how they increased the protections. And so it kind of seemed like they're like, they denied that it was happening, and now they're saying it did happen, and now it's a good thing. So it kind of that is like a cycle. It's not happening, but if it is happening, it's a good thing. Like CRT, like it's not in schools. Well, if it is in schools, it's a good thing. So that's just a repeated sort of thing. But yeah, funny, haha. But unfortunately, I live here. But in the meantime, doing something good for our troops. So if you can, again, very much appreciate it. God bless you guys.